Hey folks, Rich Pt1 from Brighter Days, Christchurch, New Zealand here with part one of a tutorial that I have put out on LinkedIn already, but it will be how to make this PowerApp, single screen PowerApp that helps you track. In this case, we're tracking a pipeline of work, but it could be a pipeline or a tracking app of anything you choose. So, quick demo. We can use the top area. It's a showcase app that's got lots of different functions that allow you to slice and dice the data by clicking on various items and then change items based on their activity. So let's move this one to blocked, update. So RCAM will change. So we're blocked on that, and we see a amount of blocked items. I click on the blocked. See all my blocked items, right? So that's the basic premise. This one uses SharePoint as a data source, and to show you first up, let's just jump into LinkedIn and grab the article. Connect with me if you want, or just look me up and look up my posts and look at my articles, and you'll find, or if you search, I've got two articles in here at the moment, part 1 and part 2. Part 3 is on its way, but part 1, so, or just search LinkedIn PowerApps Tracking App Tutorial Part 1. Everything I'm going to show you today is covered in this particular tutorial, okay? So that's that. So just look me up, Rich Pt1. Okay, first thing you need to do is build your data source. So I always tend to build a data source before I start building my app, and it's only when I realize I haven't added everything I need in my data source that I start messing around once I've created my PowerApp with my data source. So head over to SharePoint, SharePoint Online, and build yourself a list to capture the data. So everything we're seeing in the PowerApp comes from SharePoint, and then the list settings that you're going to want. I'll leave this up for a sec. Pause the recording as needed. I don't have any other views, but you're going to want a title column, chased, amount. Now I tend to go no spaces with all my words or my column names. Call me old school SharePoint, but I come from that world. So likely start date, all one word, but you can have spaces if you want. Just remember that when you're patching it later. Category ID, amount left, job status. So all of these guys. So create some columns. All right, and then once you've done that, throw in some dummy data. Doesn't really matter, just have something so that when you connect up this data, then you can see what you've created, see it coming into the app. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to step through building an app, adding the data sources first of all, and then we'll add the galleries, and then we'll start making it pretty. Okay, so we'll step through one part at a time. All right, back into it. So head over to the main PowerApp screen and create yourself a new Canvas app. And then you're going to want a blank app, tablet layout. All right, and then what I've done initially off my bat is I've gone into the orange mode. I won't go coral, we'll go orange. Just to make my stuff orangey. You can have whatever theme you want, but my new company, Brighter Days, is very orange, so we'll stick with that for the moment, okay? Now let's connect our data sources. So if you've never connected data sources before, you go to View, Data Sources. That might change in the future, but you'll want to connect it. If you've ever connected to SharePoint before, under the connectors, you'll have a SharePoint connector. If you don't have one, you can refresh, check it's not in there, or go and look for or create a new one. But SharePoint generally picks up if you've worked in PowerApps before. It should show there. So click on SharePoint, and then if again you haven't ever made a connection to it, click add a connection. That'll create one. I've got one. Always try and click on the one you've already created, otherwise you'll have heaps of them. To just have the one you want. Click that, and then that's going to look for the site. So where is this site that we have created? So the bunch of SharePoint sites that I've got set up, and I'm going to want this one here. So that's my site collection name, and then I should have my list already. I've called it. I should have said that back here. Call the list BD pipeline. Just makes it easy if you do what I'm doing, then that will show up. and then select BD type pipeline. Do that. Now I've got a second data connection in my app as well, Office 365 users. For this single screen app, I don't actually think I use it, but I always like to have it in there in case I need to call it. Some people might say that's overhead, but just click that and add your Office 365 users. That just allows you to look up the user against Office 365, and if you want to show particular items to certain people based on their email or their group membership in SharePoint, then you can do a comparison against the logged in user against Office 365, and then see if they're a member of a SharePoint group or something, and it helps just sort that out. Okay. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is build 2 data collections in our app. Now, a collection is a local source of your remote data, so if you're working with things that can help things run quicker, if you don't need to send data to and fro from your data source all the time, then you can have it local. So save, adjust everything you need, and then save it all in one hit. Just speeds up the refresh speed of your app as you go. If you add loads and loads and loads of collections at the start of your app, then it could slow down the load time, so get the balance right. This particular case, I'm creating 2, super easy, and what I'm doing is I'm creating a copy of this SharePoint data in my app, just to make it so it's easier for me to work with, and I'm also creating a status collection as well, where I can use it to compare against my job status. I'm doing that because I'm trying to showcase different functions within a PowerApp. You could just use the job status and filter by that in the SharePoint column. Okay, so just, yeah, for this particular example, whoops, get back to the right app, we're going to create 2. So I'm putting these collections in the on start. You could have them on visible, but I'm doing on start. So if you don't know how to get to the on start, so when your app loads itself, it's going to create the connections, right? So you want to click on app up in here. So that's the on start. Used to have a different area, but now it's called app. And then you want to go into the formula bar here, and then I always like to click it, drag it down a little bit so I can see what I'm working with, and then minimize it. And it should remember how big you had it open last time, okay? And then we are going to create 2 collections, and I'm copying and pasting, so I'll leave this up on the screen or pause. Okay, first up, I'm doing, so clear collect means that it will remove, clear everything that's in the collection, then collect it again. With an on start, probably don't need to have clear collect, just collect because it's opening on start, but I like just to keep it in because I'm lazy. Right, so we're doing my pipeline, so that is the data source. You'll know if it exists because it will go green, and then you'll be able to click the little up and down arrow. Nothing will show first up because we haven't actually collected it yet, and it's showing the my pipeline. But if I go over BD pipeline, that's the remote data source. That's a SharePoint list, and then even there, that might eventually show some stuff, but it doesn't show it yet. That's a good way to check. So the syntax here, if you have it, you can have everything like that. Then you can paste it all as a single line if you wanted to, and then you can push format text, and that will push it into a nice, easily read collection. So the first one's called my pipeline as the collection. The second one's called my status. Now I've used my for these, but you could call them COL, like Col for collection, which is useful. Shout out to my buddy Paul O'Flaherty, who likes to use that particular naming rule each time, and I do it, Paul, just not for this demo, okay? And then so this is a different type of collection where rather than going straight to the data source, which is that one is our SharePoint one, for this one I'm actually creating the status elements in my collection. So all this will do is we'll create a single column collection called my status, and I'll have a column called the status, and it'll have these one after the other. Now because that's in on start, that's not going to show up when we first do it. So once you've created it, you could save your app, close it, open it again, or if you want to be lazy, you can just copy everything, go to insert button, and paste that into the on button, onto the on select aspect of the button, and then either push play to play your app, or hold down the Alt key on your keyboard and push that button, and that will run, and that will go and collect our data. And then I'll know if the data's come in. If I go to view data sources first up, I can see I've got them created, and I can go then view collections. I'll see my 2, and I'll see the items that are starting to come in. In this view, you only see the first 5. but you'll see the single column called the status and then the My Pipeline app. So they're in there, right? Sometimes it's useful to have a button around, knocking around on your screen if you want to do other on start functions, just to save your time having to close your app and open it again. If you do it once, like if you change the on start action at all, then a lot of the collections you've already created may stop working. So sometimes I put them in a button first, test them with the button, make sure everything's all good, and then if I'm happy with it, then I'll copy everything out of the button onto like back into the on start or app step in here, and then I will paste it back in. Okay, so that's just useful to know. And then looking at the app on start now, because we've got the collection, I can hover over My Pipeline, and if I click on that little drop down next to it, I'll start to see information that comes in there. And then in this view, you see as many of the items as you want to see, right? So it's good for debugging if you want to see why a particular item is not in or is in. All right. So we created our two collections, and now we'll move to something else I want to create. I want to create a couple of variables, context variables that will work as default values for my application when the main screen becomes visible. So rather than working in the app screen, we're going to work in the screen one. Probably want to rename that to something useful like home, or another thing we do is src and then underscore and then the name of the app, so we've got useful names and naming conventions. But for this example, we'll just keep it at screen one, and then I want to change my on visible. So jump up in here and then select on visible, and I'm going to put in two context variables. So I'm going to create them again up in my little drop down, push that. That just creates two context variables, one called con category, and that has a text value of show all, and then I'm going to have another one called con job status, which is blank to start off with. Now that doesn't need to mean anything to you right now, but I'm just basically setting a default value, so when I do add my galleries in, I can have default values that I can call from that gallery against it. So I can go and look at that con category, and whatever it says, that's the filter I want to see first of all when the app loads. All right, so moving on. All right, so what we're going to do now is jump into adding our first gallery. So the first gallery we're going to add in, if I show you what this app looks like, we're going to add in the gallery that's got pipeline verbal, not started, show all in as a little sort of guy at the top, and then we'll add the bigger one in at the bottom. So jump back into app, insert, gallery, and you're going to want a horizontal. I always go for blank. Happy you guys use them. Blank flexible is good as well if you think you're going to be dealing with lots of areas of text. For this one, I know I'm going to have just a few buttons, and it may be horizontal, so I can control everything I want to see in that. So I'm going to click blank horizontal, and I'm going to select my status once it's added as my data source. Okay, so click that. Nothing will happen straight away, and then I'm going to resize things up to make it work a little better, and I will leave it big and then we'll make it smaller. So first up, so I've got my gallery here. I want to click on the pencil, edit gallery, right? So that's where I go, because everything I put into this gallery will repeat across everything else. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to add a button, and I'm going to make my button be looking like that. Maybe that's that big. And you can see here that we start to go off the screen, right? So I don't really want to have that happen, but I only want my gallery to be a bit smaller, so fix that up. Just make your gallery a bit smaller, your first cell smaller, and let's go a bit smaller again. That'll be alright, I think. And I lose the slider at the bottom, so I'm all set. Jump back into that, and then what I'm going to want to do is going to recolor the name of the button, and I'm going to drop in some text. Instead of it saying button, I'm going to change the name of the button to be this item dot my status. Sorry, my pipeline. So in our collection, if I go view collections, I've got my status, and I want this status. So I'm going to make my buttons show with all of those ones. Okay. So to do that, you can go text from that side, or you can go drop down, select text, and then rather than having button in speech marks, I'm going to go this item, whoa, dot, and then by doing the dot, it's going to know all the values within my collection. So I just pick the status, and I've got stuff. And that text looks a bit big for me, so I'm going to make that a bit smaller, just to make it look a bit neater. And I'm also going to move it to the top. So on vertical line, you can do this up in here as well, but I like to work from the right hand side menu if I can. The top, and then that gives me space to put something else here as well. Okay, so that must start to take shape. Now let's change the color of these buttons as well. Okay, so you want to be looking for the fill color, so on that side, and then we're also going to have to work with the rest colors and stuff as well. But for this example, let's just do the fill color. All right, and actually I don't want to do it that way because that's just going to give me, if I do this, I'll show you, if I click that button, they're all going to change color. So I don't want that to happen. So I want to be able to get into the formula behind the button to change the color of the button to match whatever I want to have as my color scheme. Okay. So go back to your button, select it, jump onto the right hand side, and then look for the property called fill. Alright, there we go. I'm going to copy and paste some stuff in here and then explain it to you. Alright, so we've got the fill property, and let's just paste in stuff and see what that's done. It's changed colors. So what we've gone here, we've done a conditional statement. So if this item dot the status, and then that's just the text value, right? So we know we've got all the names of this because we created the collection with them, right? So we know there's going to be there. And I'm only looking for 4 status types to show the demo that after a condition you can have a catch-all. If none of those statuses are matched, then we make it dark gray. And that's also to show you that you can use, you don't have to use RGB colors, the color codes, although the internet's loaded with them, and you can look up any color and say, give me that color in RGB, and you get it for this one. But you can just call them white, you know, black, gray, silver, pink, you know, that sort of stuff. But you can also use things like dark gray. Remembering it's gray with an A, not gray with an E, just in case of your language there. So that's the fill. All right. And then we can see our buttons. I've got that. And then let's just check our hover on these buttons. So they're all going to the same color. But I might not want that to be like that. So I think I'll leave it for now. But I could also repeat what I've just done in under the buttons down on, in the formula bar again. I want to look for like button hover color, hover fill. So hover color will be the color of the text. And then hover fill. As a button, there's a few functions within buttons that I can use for hover, but there's not too many that I can use, not like a full CSS type setup. So just say, yeah, but you've got hover fill, hover color. And so again, that's just going to give me, that's the theme color that we've got. If I hover over that, or select it, sorry, that should give me, there we go. That's the theme color we picked for the orange, so it's going to be minus 10%. So again, I could change that. Say I don't want my buttons to change color, and then play this again. They're not going to change color, but it doesn't really look like much is happening there. So what we could do is change it to be like a minus 10 or something like that on these as well. So rather than that, we undo that. You can see you've got. Put a final thing in there, minus 10%. You can change it to whatever you want, a color fade. So if I go, if I want to, just in case you want to learn marking out your text, do that. And then I can use this here as a little bit of a helper. So copy that, put a bracket in, and then comma, minus 10 after that. So what they'll do, and let's make it 20, right, so make it a bit bigger. Make the difference a bit more extreme, and then hover over there. You see that will change to a similar color, right? So I could also pick that color fill minus 10% as well. I can name the button whatever the color of the button was to be, rather than just to show what I mean there. So rather than having to type this all again, I could say if basically make the color fade a percentage of whatever that button is, and to show what that looks like, we want to put in this formula. Okay, so let's just Should I show you another way to mark out bigger segments of code or expressions in your, oops, not 8, we want // so /*// will just give you some markup. That's useful if you want to write information. So if you're a consultant or you're building something and you need to let someone else know what you've done in there, that's a way to write your markup text, which is good practice. But to make the shade of the button, rather than having to type out this whole time, I can just say, show me, this is called button 2. So we know the button's button number 2, that's it. And it's called button 2 in all the cells in the gallery. I can say color fade button 2 dot fill, so that's a property of button 2, the fill color, and then 20%, right? So similar to what we did. To show you what that does, push it back in play mode. There's no need to retype all the stuff. It's just going to take 20% shade of that. Alright, hope that one makes sense. Next thing we're going to do is add the main gallery from our BD pipeline data source. Actually, I tell a lie, reading my LinkedIn post here, what I need to do is put something else in this button. So let's do that. There's a couple ways you can do this here. I could put a text field on top of my button, and then if anyone clicked that text button, it wouldn't actually work. But if they click the button, it would work, or I can put the text inside the main text of the button. So what I want to do is, for this example, so I want to select the button, and I want to go to my text property of the button, and you see where it's got this item status. I'm going to change that. Oops, let's get that bigger again, because we're going to put a little bit more code in here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a summary of the amount of stuff I'm putting in. So in the data source, all of the dollar values that exist summed up for that status type. So rather than just this item status, to there, oops. I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to go this item.status still, and then I'm going to do an and a speech mark and another one in space, and that's giving me a new line. I could do a second new line if I want to, just to make it fun. And then I've got in here a formula that's going to allow me to get the dollar value of all of the matching items in my gallery collection to compare against pipeline, verbal, not started, started. There's other ways to do that as well. I'm doing this in a nice simple method for you. So to step through this formula, doing a condition. So if this, because we don't know what that button's value is, so basically say if this button's the button called pipeline, then go to my pipeline, which is the local data source. So it means it will be a lot quicker. If I had to go to SharePoint and had 2,000 items in here, it would take a bit of time to go and get the information and sum it. Because I've already collected the data, then the actual creation or calculation of the total amount is a bit quicker. And so I'll go to my pipeline. I'm going to filter my pipeline against category value pipeline, and then I'm going to sum it against the column called amount. And then I'm going to do it in a text display to give me the dollar value symbol and commas every 1,000. So if you are in New Zealand, then you can't do an ENNZ, that won't work. So just stick with US, because I know there's lots of PowerApp people in New Zealand, but we still don't have currency types. So PowerApps team, make it so. But then all we're going to do is basically step through each one. So if it's verbal, if it's not started, if it's started, and then otherwise, rather than show all, for the very last one, I'm doing just get me the pipeline and then sum on the amount and then make that a text value, so it looks like a dollar value. All right. So what's that done is now we've got numbers in here. Right? In my other app, what I've done is I've put that as a text value and I put a hidden button over the front of it. But this will work just as well now. And if I wanted to resize things a little bit, then I can make my button be a little bit taller or something like that to give us a bit more space under the button to make it look a bit prettier, right? Okay, cool. Now we're going to add the gallery. Promise. Here we go. Okay. So again, adding a gallery. This is a vertical gallery, blank vertical rather than a blank horizontal. Click gallery, blank vertical. Select that. And then you can do select my pipeline from here. That's going to get it, and then resize that to wherever you want it to be. So I've gone for quite a big wide guy, wide. Make it as big or as small as you want, and then basically, so you've got items at the moment as my pipeline. Now, if you go to my LinkedIn post, you're going to get a formula to paste into here. So rather than my pipeline, we're going to go big on a lot of different filters. So basically, the gallery will respond to the button that clicks up on this particular gallery above it. So it's going to look like that. It's going to be huge when you first get it, and you're not going to know what it all means, but don't stress. Go to LinkedIn, copy and paste that in, and I'll step you through it. So basically, con category, which is the little context variable we set on visible for this screen. If that equals show all, and con job status is blank, then show everything. Now, because we did, we set those two variables on visible, right? But then we didn't ever leave this particular screen, so those variables won't have kicked in yet because they happen on visible. So a little cheat for that: add a screen, go back to your other screen, and then things will start to show up. So then we can go over con category now. We can see what's the value of it, and now I know it's show all, whereas before it didn't exist, it was just empty. So I've got nothing in this gallery. I haven't added any fields yet because it's a blank gallery, but it does mean that we should be at this level of the filter. And I'll walk through the other bits of the filter as we go, okay? But I've remembered there's one thing I need to add back into the buttons above it. I need to set a context variable, update that context variable when people push that button. So let me grab the formula for that. When we do that on the on select of the button, so grab that, and at the moment we've got select parent. We don't need that. We're going to replace it with update context con category, and that's the one that's saying all, show all at the moment. So we're going to change that to basically the context category will change to the words we have here, the status, pipeline, verbal, not started. That will become the new context variable. And then I've got a catch all here at the end. So if I push that button and I push on show all, then it's going to make context job status blank, just so that it clears any other filters that I might have put in, right? So show how that works. I hold down the Alt key, push verbal, and then I can go, what is my con category now doing, saying, I should see that. No, doesn't want to play. Alright, so if you ever want to test stuff, just go insert label and then put it up here or something, and then make that the name of your context variable. So rather than text, just go con job category. Okay, so then we'll see that change as we push buttons. So if I push the not started, that change to not started, down it goes. And you can see over here, starting to know that there's a difference, right? Even though the gallery is empty, there's not many verbals, right? But it knows there's a lot on started. So the gallery knows that it should be showing a certain amount of items, but there's nothing to show at this point because I haven't added any fields. All right, so on that one, on the button, basically update it to show that, and then this will respond. Now we're going to pretty up this gallery to make it look cool, and then we'll probably take a break from that because I've been talking for a while, and I'll be able to do a part 2 on this, but this will get you started with a button responding to a gallery. Alright, so let's grab this gallery, and then we're going to make, so selected, click on the pencil, and then make that a bit smaller so it's going to not take up massive amounts, because we're just going to go horizontal. We're not worried about it spanning over multiple lines, because I know that the client names are short, status are all short, and everything else is short. So then we can jump in and add labels. So with this selected, I can either go add here, or I can just go label, and it should drop it straight in. It's going to pick up what it thinks you want to start off with. So we'll start off with the status. Now, because we're talking to SharePoint, and we're using in SharePoint, I should have showed you actually under the list settings here, the choice settings for status, or job status, or category, their choices. So this is where you got to put in the choices, right? So sorry, I should have told you that, but then they match the other gallery, just so to show you, so we know that if we're going to go and talk to SharePoint and if I do this item, sorry, category, it's not going to want it to start off with because it's going to go in error because it's a choice field, right? So I need to do a dot and then a value. But that just gives me plain text, right? So, and I might want to change this button to be the drop down like I've got in the other app. So I have it in a read only mode and in an edit mode all at one time. So rather than using this item dot gallery category, sorry, dot value, I'm going to drop in the actual field from SharePoint, which is choices. Text value. Okay, that's cool. I understand why I've done that wrong. That's okay. Let's backtrack that. Drop out of that. Delete that. There's a choice field, right? So if you've been playing along, you know we're going to want to insert a drop down instead, right? And then I'm going to paste in my choices there. There we go. Because it's a choice type field, and it's not going to work if it is a if I try to put a text. If I try and have a text value, and I want to put a drop down value, and I've got to go and do a lookup to get it, or if I want to make it a usable drop down, then I need to make it a proper drop down field, and then that will work. Grabs all the information from the list as I want. Okay, then we'll do some labels now. So this item.title is the next one we're going to drop in there. So another label. And then make that a bit wider because, yeah, some of the names are reasonably big. And then drop another one. And I don't want to do that initially. I'm going to delete that guy. I'm going to drop in a date type field. So input date picker. And I'm going to go over there a little bit. And I'm going to make that smaller. The default date will be this item chased, or this item likely start date. So rather than having the default date, which is today, this item dot chased, which matches my SharePoint data source, and then make that a bit smaller. So some of them don't have values, some do. Now that's American date, right? So we don't use that in the mighty New Zealand, so we'll change that. Easiest way to change that is to go into your drop down of options for your field, and then find the one that says format, and then delete short date stuff, speech marks dd/mm/YYYY, speech marks. Easy as that. Change the date. Done, and it's a fully functioning date field, date picker as well, so that's all cool. I'm going to probably make these a little bit smaller and stuff, so I'm going to run out of space. I've got to make that a bit lower because I'm going to put titles here as well. Alright, let's keep going. So next thing we want is the amount of items. I'm going to go text input. I should have changed that to text input as well. I'm going to change that before we do that because I want to make this a form, right? So people can make changes to everything in line. And let's change the default of that to this item dot amount, and then using the same number formats we've got here, so that knows the dollar value for that. And let's just change. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to put in the text value for it. So text input. And then drop them in there. Make them a bit smaller. This item dot title. Cool. Touch to the right. So you can see that we just keep progressing this all the way along. Okay, so the funky one on here is I've got like a shape. So I'll bring that in, and I'll explain that. All right. So this is a group, and hasn't pasted in very well, but there's two parts to it. So let's ungroup it and then step through how that is. So if you've got something group, home, group, ungroup, and we'll just move that thing out of the way a little bit. So you can see I've got a circle, right? And all I'm doing with that is making it a different color based on the status of the item. So the fill of that, again, this is showing you how you can use, you don't need to use RGB values, you can just use the main color names, right? So the fill of the circle is this item dot job status dot value. If that equals active, then make it green. Again, blocked is red, deferred is goldenrod, because that's a cool name for a color. And then if it's closed, then gray. And then if there's anything in there that doesn't have a matching one of these 4 statuses, then make it white, so we don't see anything. Okay. And then if I drag my icon back over, put them in the middle-ish, something like that. And you probably want to use your pixels left and right to move them, or put them right in the middle. Let's make that a 9, eh? Let's see where that goes. That looks pretty good. And then so I've got different icons based on the status. So to do that, because an icon, it has a property called icon. And we're using the same formula of the if statement based on the job status value. And so if it's active, then make it the check, or icon.check. If it's blocked, make it the cancel. If you ever want to know what options you've got under icons, just go into the icon, just go insert an icon, put an icon in there, and then you can have a look at it over on the right. And then all these names match against those icon dot something. That one might be fun, but click it, and then you can go figure out what its name is. By going icon, oh yeah, so just take away the slash, like, dislike. It's always going to be a single word, but yeah, use this on the right to work through what icons you want. There could be images as well based on what you want, but the icon set works great. Useful to use in this particular app. Right, just taking a break for a sec. Okay, we're back into it. I've added a few extra fields in there. So we've got amount, we've got likely start date as a date type, we've got another text input, which is amount left, and then we've got, let me just get rid of the filter on that. For now, we've got choices, BD pipeline.job status. Alright, so those are those ones, and there you go. Many of these don't have a status at this point in time. And the last thing we're going to do is input a button, so just go insert button, and I'll drop button in at the end. We're running out of space, so I have to make sure a few of these things are a bit smaller. And I'm going to make that button a bit smaller and move them over. Sometimes if you do it too close to the edge, you get the little scrolling bar, which gets in the way, to me at least. Make that 11, and then we're going to change the value on that to just to update. So change the text value. Another way to change it is to just put it in there, click out, it'll update, and then let's just move the icon to the right a little bit, make it look prettier. Cool. And then if I play this, because I've connected this collection with, or this gallery with this gallery, click on verbal, it changes, although it's going to pipeline. So let's work out what's going on. So that's the status, job status is over in here. I get you. Pipeline. Yeah, that should be verbal. Don't know why that one's on verbal. So let's figure out what's going on there. Alright, jumping back in. Alright, so I figured out that one. So what I want to do, because I haven't set a default value, right? So if you've been watching along, you'd go, oh, Rich, you haven't put the default value in there, man. It's going to show everything that's in there. So we've got items, okay? So that's showing the first item in the list. So I want to select for the drop down, we want to go up to default. Rather than 1, which is the first item in the data source, we want to go this item.category.value, and then that will change. And then we can do the same for job status as well. So let's adjust that, go to default. So we don't want 1 as well. Let's go job status dot value. So as you type ahead, you can push tab on your keyboard and it will remember what's in there. That one may not have a job status, but that's cool. Alright, so now if we do everything, goes to show all, and we see everything. Go to pipeline, see the pipelines, go to verbals, go to not started. So it's filtering, it's working as expected, doesn't show all the data for each piece, but that works as we intended. All right, so that's the first part of this little app sorted. We'll come back with a part 2 later on, stepping through how to add the other field, or the other gallery up here, which has different status indicators, and then we'll deal with updating these items and creating a pop-up that will sit on front of all of this that allows us to create a form and making it look like it's got some branding on it, so it looks like a real thing. But that should get you started to build a gallery, 2 galleries connected up together on a data source with filtering as expected. Any questions, just ask in the chat on this video. Look forward to hearing how you get on building this app. Cheers. Bye-bye.